Alright, what's going on? Howdy. So I've been wanting to do this for a quick minute. I thought today was the perfect day to do it. I don't want to make multiple videos on this, but I'm probably going to have to down the line. And this is basically just a recap of free agency up until today, of all the trades and signings and stuff. I feel like we don't need to go over the draft. Probably not the first round, but most definitely the second round, because there was a lot of movement in that second round, a lot of trades. And yeah, this is basically just a quick recap of free agency, just to get you up to speed on what's going on in the NBA today. And yeah, man, I don't mean to sound like an idiot or nothing. I'm not trying to sound like most of these all these update videos and all that shit. That's not me. But as an NBA fan, and like me looking at all the Woj bombs and looking at all the sham tweets and Bleacher Report and all that shit, it would just be cool just to make a quick little mini video on just recapping it, and then maybe in like 2 weeks, or let's see how much movement there is in the NBA, and I'll just be here to let you guys know what's going on. Alright, so starting off with free agency, there are players still being like talked to this like moment right now, but we're just gonna go through free agency first. So we're gonna go in alphabetical order. So first off, we got the Blazers. They brought back Jeremy Grant on a 5-year deal worth $160 million. They also brought in they also brought in Abu Baji on a 1-year deal. My fault if I butcher any of these names, like my fault. Not the best with them, but yeah, brought him on a 1-year deal. Next, we got the Bucks, who brought back Chris Middleton after he declined his player option. They got him back on a 3-year deal worth around $102 million. Then they brought back Brook Lopez on a 2-year deal worth $48 million, and they also brought back Jay Crowder on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got my Bulls, my favorite team. If you don't know, now you know. My Bulls are my team. I love this team, even though they bring me the most emotional pain. I still love them. So we brought back Vooch on a 3-year deal worth around $60 million. We brought back Kobe White on a 3-year deal worth around $33 million. That was also it's potentially worth around $40 million. That's with incentives or initiatives, one of the two words. AK made a move to bring in Javon Carter from the Bucks on a 3-year deal worth around $20 million, and we also brought in Torrey Craig from the Phoenix Suns. Signed him to a 2-year deal worth around $5.5 million. Next up, we got the Cavs. They brought back Karis LeVert on a 2-year deal worth around $32 million. They brought in Georges Niang on a 3-year deal worth around $26 million. They brought in Ty Jerome on a 2-year deal worth around $5 million. Next up, we got the Celtics, who acquired Kristaps Porzingis in a 3-team trade. We'll talk about that later. But they extended him on a 2-year deal worth around $60 million, and they brought in O'Shea Brissett. I believe he was already on the team. I'm not too sure. Brought him on a 2-year deal worth around $5 million, and also brought in Delano Batten on a 2-year deal worth around $5 million as well. Next up, we got the Clippers, who have been kind of quiet as of late. They brought back Russell Westbrook on a 2-year deal worth around $8 million. Can't complain. Next up, we got the Grizzlies, who extended Desmond Bane on a 5-year deal worth around $205 million, $207 million, around there, and brought in my favorite player, my hero, Derrick Rose, on a 2-year deal worth around $7 million. Best believe I'm gonna cop that Derrick Rose jersey. Next up, we got the Hawks, who have been quiet in free agency, but they still have intentions to make. Of course, all teams have intentions to make signings in free agency. Next up, we got the Heat, who brought back Josh Richardson. He wasn't on the team originally, but he was a few years back. Brought him back on a 2-year deal worth around $6 million. They re-signed Kevin Love on a 2-year deal worth around $8 million. They brought in Thomas Bryant on a 2-year deal worth around $5.5 million, and brought in Orlando Robinson on a 1-year deal worth around $2 million. Next up, we got the Hornets, who extended LaMelo Ball, gave him that rookie extension, 5 years, $260 million, and they also signed Miles Bridges back on the qualifying offer that's worth around 1 year, $8 million. Next up, we got the Jazz, who re-signed Jordan Clarkson on a 3-year deal worth around $55 million. None too crazy. Next up, we got the Kings, who re-signed Domantas Sabonis on a 5-year deal worth around $217 million, and they also brought back Harrison Barnes on a 3-year deal worth around $55 million. Brought back Trey Lyles on a 2-year deal worth around $16 million. They brought in, I don't know how to say his name, but he was the EuroLeague MVP, I believe, on a 3-year deal worth around $20 million. Also brought back Alex Len on a 1-year deal around $3 million. Brought in Keon Ellis on a 1-year deal, and Jalen Slauson on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got the Knicks, who have been kind of quiet, but they brought in Dante DiVincenzo on a 4-year deal worth around $5 million. So they got Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and Dante DiVincenzo from that Villanova team that won that championship, I believe. Next up, we got the Lakers, who have been cheating. I believe that they're cheating. The Lakers right now are doing everything that you want your favorite team to do as a contender to go in free agency. So they brought back Austin Reeves on a 4-year deal worth around $56 million. They brought back Rui Hachimura on a 3-year deal worth around $51 million. Brought back D'Angelo Russell on a 2-year deal worth around $37 million. Brought in Gabe Vincent on a 3-year deal worth around $33 million. Brought in Taurean Prince on a 1-year deal. Brought in Cam Reddish on a 2-year deal, and also brought in Jackson Hayes on a 2-year deal. Me, honestly, I think that they're winning this free agency, because I would love if this is the perfect free agency for like almost every team. This is like not the same exact players, but keeping your core and also adding while not being above that I think it's the luxury tax. But yeah, Lakers are winning. Next up, we got the Magic, who brought in Joe Ingles on a 2-year deal worth around $22 million. Probably just brought him in to be a vet in the locker room. None too crazy. They brought back Mo Wagner on a 2-year deal worth around $16 million. Next up, we got the Mavs, who re-signed Kyrie Irving on a 3-year deal worth around $126 million. Brought back Dwight Powell on a 3-year deal worth around $12 million. Brought back Seth Curry on a 2-year deal worth around $10 million. Now, he wasn't on the team originally last season, but he was there a few years ago. He had a couple stints in Philly and Brooklyn after being in Dallas, but now he's back in Dallas, which is ideal, which is what he kind of need in Dallas. Need a 3-point shooting. And then they brought in Dante Exum on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got Brooklyn, who brought back Cameron Johnson on a 4-year deal, extended him worth around $108 million. Brought in Dennis Smith Jr. on a 1-year deal, and also brought in Lonnie Walker on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got the Nuggets, who brought back Reggie Jackson, on a 2-year deal worth around $10 million. Brought back DeAndre Jordan on a 1-year deal, and also brought in Justin Holiday on a 1-year deal. As a Bulls fan, Denver got one in Justin Holiday. Now, he might not be on everybody's radar, but he's solid. Plays some good defense. Amazing shooting. He gonna fit right in. Next up, we got the Pacers, who stole Bruce Brown from the Nuggets, pretty much. Brought him in on a 2-year deal worth around $45 million, and gave that rookie extension to Tyrese Halliburton, 5 years, $206 million. Next up, we got New Orleans, who declined Herb Jones, his team option, but extended him on a 4-year deal worth around $54 million and brought in Cody Zeller on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got Detroit, who brought in Jared Horton. Sorry if I'm butchering these names. On a 1-year deal, and brought in Malcolm Casalone on a 1-year deal. Next up, we got Toronto, who brought back Jakob Poeltl on a 4-year deal worth around $80 million. Brought in Dennis Schroeder on a 2-year deal worth around $26 million, and Jalen McDaniels on a 2-year deal worth around $10 million. As a fan outside looking in, I see that they lost Kyle Lowry a few seasons back. Now they just lost Fred VanVleet this offseason. And you would think that, like, oh, okay, we lost our starting point guards, let's try and rebuild, but it looks like they found their replacement with that amount of money. You would think that they're trying to, like, contend for, like, a play-in spot. But who knows? Next up, we got the Rockets, like I just said. Toronto lost Fred VanVleet. Rockets get him on a 3-year deal worth $130 million. They gave this man $130 million to shoot less than 40%. They also brought in Dylan Brooks on a 4-year deal worth around $80 million. They gave a contract out to Jock Landale on worth 4 years, $32 million. Brought in Jeff Green on a 1-year deal worth around $6 million. Nothing too crazy. So that's his second. This is Jeff Green's second stint in Houston. Next up, we got Philly, who brought in Patrick Beverley on a 1-year deal. As a Bulls fan, I'm upset that he is gone, and he will definitely be missed. Next up, we got the Spurs, who brought back Trey Jones on a 2-year deal worth around $20 million. Brought back Julian Champagne on a 4-year deal worth around $12 million. And they brought in Sandro Mamukelashvili on a 1-year deal. It's kind of hard to pronounce. Next up, we got the Suns. Twitter has been, like, flaming them that they are on autofill, but they brought in Eric Gordon on a 2-year deal worth around $6 million. Brought in Drew Eubanks on a 2-year deal worth around $5 million. Most of these deals are $5 million. Brought back Damian Lee on a 2-year deal. Brought in Keita Bates-Diop on a 2-year deal. Brought in Chizime Metu on a 1-year deal. Brought back Josh Okogie on a 1-year deal, and brought in the sniper Yuta Watanabe on a 1-year deal. So I would say they're having a pretty good offseason for the amount of money they have. Kind of expected, but nothing crazy. Next up, we got the Thunder, who brought in Vasily Micic. No, I believe this was the EuroLeague MVP. I forgot, though. One of them was the EuroLeague MVP. But they brought him on a 3-year deal worth around $23.5 million, and also brought in Jack White on a 2-year deal. Next up, we got Minnesota, who gave that rookie extension to Anthony Edwards, 5 years worth around $260 million. Brought back Naz Reid, 3 years worth around $41 million. Brought in Shake Milton on a 2-year deal worth around $10 million. Brought back Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a 2-year deal. Brought in Troy Brown Jr. and brought back Luka Garza. I just want to take a quick minute. You're paying Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, max money. You're paying Rudy Gobert, max money. You're paying Anthony Edwards, max money. And now you gave $41 million to Naz Reid. Somebody gonna have to go, bruh. Somebody gonna have to go. Next up, we got Golden State, who brought back Draymond Green on a 4-year deal worth around $100 million after he declined his player option and had a bunch of reports and saying that he was gonna meet with teams and all that, but ended up going back with Golden State. And they brought in Corey Joseph on a 1-year deal. And lastly, the Wizards have been kind of quiet, but they brought back Kyle Kuzma on a 4-year deal worth around $102 million. So that was just free agency as the signings as of today, July 4th. Forgot to mention 2 signings. Clippers bring back Mason Plumlee on a 1-year deal, and Malik Beasley agreed on a 1-year deal to join the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's as of late. Alright, now we're going to head into the trades, and the first trade that we all pretty much know is Washington sending Bradley Beal to Phoenix in exchange for Chris Paul, Andrew Shamet, and a few second-round picks and a few pick swaps. Next up, we got that Porzingis trade, like I mentioned before. Boston received Kristaps Porzingis and 2 first-round picks that we will go over later. And Washington got back Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, and Mike Muscala, and Memphis ended up getting Marcus Smart. Then Washington made another trade to acquire Chris Paul in exchange for Jordan Poole for a first-round pick in 2030 and a second-round pick in 2027. Next up, the next trade that happened after was the Hawks sending John Collins to Utah in exchange for Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. Then we got a salary dump from Brooklyn sending Joe Harris and a couple second-round picks in 2027 and 2029 to Detroit in exchange for a trade exception. Pistons made another move to acquire Monte Morris from Washington in exchange for a second-round pick. Then the Heat send Oladipo to Oklahoma in exchange for draft compensation, which I assume is just a few second-round picks, and a trade exception. And then free agency sign-in trades start to happen. Here, the Cavs, they acquire Max Strus in a sign-in trade, and in a 3-team deal where Miami gets a second-round pick and San Antonio acquires Chetty Osman, Lamar Stevens, and a future second-round pick from Cleveland. So that was that one deal. Next up, we got the Knicks sending Obi Toppin to Indiana in exchange for 2 second-round picks. Rockets making a couple moves here. Rockets send Kenyon Martin Jr. to the Clippers in exchange for 2 future first-round picks. And then the Rockets also send out Ty Washington Jr. and Usman Garuba with draft compensation to Atlanta. Doesn't really say what else was given. Maybe the deal is still being talked about there. And they also send Josh Christopher to Memphis for a first rounder. And yeah, that was pretty much all of the trades that happened as of today. Lastly, we're going to go over the second round moves that happened because everybody knows where everybody landed in the first round. Alright, so we got the second round pulled up here. We're going to speed run through this. The Pistons draft James Najee with the 31st pick, but then traded to Charlotte. The Pacers draft Jalen Pickett, but then traded to the Nuggets. Spurs draft Leonard Miller, but then traded to the Timberwolves. Hornets draft Colby Jones, but then traded to Sacramento. Celtics draft Julian Phillips, which was originally Washington that drafted Julian Phillips, but ended up being traded to my Chicago Bulls. And a quick little side thing from that, I want to say that was a good pickup because what's his name? Derek Jones Jr. declined his player option, and watching the tape of Julian Phillips play, he's legit the same as Derek Jones Jr. So that was a good way to replace him. But yeah, back to this. We got with the 36th pick, we got the Magic drafting Andre Jackson Jr., but then traded to Milwaukee. Then we got the Thunder drafting Hunter Tyson, but then traded to Denver. Then we got the Kings drafting Jordan Walsh, but then traded to the Celtics. Then we got the Hornets drafting Mohamed Gueye. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that he was then traded to the Hawks. Then we got the Nuggets drafting Maxwell Lewis, but then traded to the Lakers. If you play 2K, you know that this dude, Maxwell Lewis, always ends up on the Lakers somehow. Then we got the Hornets drafting Amari Bailey with the 41st pick. Then we got Washington drafting Tristan Vukcevic. Then we got the Blazers drafting Ryan Rupert. And then the Spurs drafting Cisco with the 45th pick. The Grizzlies draft Gregory Jackson II. The Hawks draft Seth Lundy. Then the Lakers draft Mojave King, but then traded to Indiana. The Clippers draft Jordan Miller. The Cavs draft Amani Bates, which I think is the ultimate steal of the draft, but time will tell. Then we got the Thunder at 50 drafting Keontae Johnson. Then we got the Nets drafting Jalen Wilson. Suns drafting Toumani Camara. Then we got Minnesota drafting Jalen Clark. The Kings take Jalen Slauson. The Pacers draft Isaiah Wong. And then the Grizzlies draft Tariq Beaverick. And then with the 57th pick, the Wizards take Tyrese Jackson Davis, but then traded to Golden State. And the Bucks draft Kristen Livingston with the final pick. And yeah, man, that was just a recap of free agency and what's been going on as of late. To keep you guys updated, if any other bold moves happen, pretty much just talking about the Damian Lillard trade, I will be here to recap it and give my little 2 cents in. But yeah, I will have a My League video sometime later on in this week, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this little recap. Hope it was helpful. And yeah, this is Santana signing out.